Good afternoon. We are right on time and we intend to stick to time. Consider this a sort of culmination of ongoing discussions throughout this forum. We say congratulations as well for the 20th anniversary, in which the question of leadership for peace has been a central point of departure. Now we turn our attention really to what sustaining peace in a shifting global order entails, and necessarily leadership. To that end, we are delighted to welcome Excellencies, colleagues and friends to this panel. First, allow me also to extend my appreciation for your hospitality and that of Slovenia as a whole to State Secretary Dr. Melita Gabrič. Thank you so much for being here with us. His Excellency Mohammed bin Abdulaziz Al-Khulaifi, Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar. Always a pleasure and honor to see you, Doctor. Thank you so much, Chancellor Choe Hyoung-chan of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Honor to be with you. My dear sister, leader in our field, Dr. Comfort Aero, President and Chief Executive Officer of the International Crisis Group. Always good to be with you. Madam Director General, Krongkanit. I did it. Rakcharoen. Even the last. I say, my name is Itonde, Kakoma. Come on. The Director General, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, Department of European Affairs. Really an honor, Madam Director General. And a colleague, a sister institution, the Berghof Foundation of Germany, Dr. Mariia Levchenko, project manager there. Really, thank you. So, here we are. My name is Itonde Kakoma, President and CEO of Interpeace, based in Geneva. We're a proud partner of the Bled Strategic Forum and strategic partner with Slovenia, and honored to be in conversation with leaders advancing and sustaining the peace agenda. Let's move to discussion. Comfort is with me. Slovenia is somehow in an enviable position at the moment. I don't know if enviable is the right term, but strategic position at the moment, in which you're seeing the world in the advancement of peace, both from the lens of the Security Council, but also forward as the co-chair and co-facilitator of the Peace-Building Architecture Review process. And in both capacities, you have demonstrated, and I should mention together with Egypt, on the Peace-Building Architecture Review process. In both processes and positions, you have demonstrated the very leadership you've been describing. Can you, Madam State Secretary, share with us, from your perspective, what is the role of, and I don't like this term, so help us think of a better one, small states, in upholding of multilateral diplomacy and international leadership on peace?
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words of introduction, also of my country. Enviable is one word, strategic is a better one. Now, you know, the thing is that perhaps a better word also is smaller states than a small state. But the thing is, maybe the first comment I will make is that the majority of the UN member states are actually smaller states.
That's it.
And, you know, for everybody, for us who are smaller states, multilateralism is in our vital interest. As they say, the adage goes, for smaller states, multilateralism is a protection for big powers. It's a source of legitimacy. So to go to the question of what we can do in the Security Council, so the challenges that we have nothing to do with our size. the challenges have to do with this deep polarization within the Council, and this internal dynamics actually reflects very faithfully the tensions that exist in the wider geostrategic context. So this is a challenge, and perhaps as a smaller country, since you started from this vantage point, we have a certain advantage perhaps in trying to be a bridge builder, in trying to take processes forward. Now, I would like to say in no uncertain terms here that, of course, we have the UN Charter, and we should all adhere to the UN Charter that, that promulgates some very basic, very fundamental, perhaps better, principles in international relations. That is prohibition of force, prohibition of the use of force in international relations. It's, territorial integrity, sovereignty. We have a large body of human rights law, of international law, of humanitarian law. And we see what's going on in Ukraine, a blatant violation of all these principles. We see what's going on in Gaza, destruction, suffering, humanitarian catastrophe in both cases, really. Famine, even famine in Gaza, where we have hundreds and hundreds of lorries, trucks waiting to enter Gaza, and they cannot get in. But this is all to say that what we are doing in the Security Council, but also in other multilateral fora, is we are putting forward, we are a vocal voice for humanitarian protection, for the respect of humanitarian law. And, we speak about double standards a lot, right? And I would like to say again, in no uncertain terms, we do not have double standards. We have sanctions against Russia, who is the aggressor against Ukraine, because we believe that those who violate international law, who commit atrocities, should be taken into account. And we have introduced our own sanctions against the Israeli government, right? There are no double standards there. And one thing that I would say as relates to double standards is we must not confuse double standards with a special responsibility that we have as members of, let's say, a region. We have let's say, stronger or a bigger responsibility to work to resolve regional conflicts. And here, that's why we are so active and so vocal in trying to find a solution in Ukraine. We support Ukraine through material means, through political means. We also actually are very present through development, cooperation to humanitarian aid. We are very much on the ground in Ukraine through our demining action, humanitarian demining. I see the director of our institution, ITF, here with us, Mr. Levchenko. And and we are doing the same also in the West Bank and in Gaza. We are even present in Gaza with our in our mine action activities on the ground. So I think that these are all actions that we are doing, but also we are very vocal. And as I said, well, this is, I just wanted to also illustrate a little bit, that double standards, no, we do not subscribe to that. So I mentioned demining, and I would like to use this opportunity and thank our donators or, our partners in demining humanitarian demining, and it's Republic of Korea and Qatar. We have colleagues on the stage, and we're working very closely together also on these files. Am I out of my time? Or can I say
not
one more?
Not out of time, but I think you provided the perfect segue to refer to colleagues. But please do.
That's very good. But if I may just conclude
yes,
my opening remarks. I'll be very brief, but make no mistake how these two crises, and we have many more crises because data shows that we have the highest number of armed conflicts in the world since the Second World War, how they end will have long-term consequences, not only for the people or the peoples that are directly impacted, but also for the regional stability, regional security in the Middle East, in Europe, and wider. And it will have serious and long-term consequences for our global order and for our humanity. Thank you.
Thank you for this. And Madam State Secretary, because you have pointed to such a crucial fact that we are living with and that generations will continue to live with, that is to say, the manner in which wars are being carried out has consequences also on the quality of peace being sought. And the quality of peace has implications or ramifications for, let's say, the durability of any agreement therein. Thank you. Turning to close partners, as you've described, Minister of State, Dr. Al-Khulaifi, Qatar has built a trusted reputation as a global mediator in some of the most pressing, challenging conflicts facing our world. You've referred to some of them, the situation in Gaza, in Sudan, in the Great Lakes, particularly in Eastern DRC, in Ukraine, notwithstanding elsewhere, to the extent, and you'll forgive me for referencing this, I see your team looking at me. The Guardian has recently called Doha, I quote, the global capital of diplomacy in light of those efforts. There's a smile, huh? I got In your view, Doctor, what factors make mediation effective in today's fragmented geopolitical environment, as you so well put? And what lessons can the international community draw from Qatar's experience and your own as a principal mediator?
Thank you very much, dear brother, for this important question. And at the outset, please also to extend my thanks to the host. The government of Slovenia has been very generous with us in organizing this very important platform, which we believe that it's a very important platform for all of us to continue sharing, collaborating, but also discuss the current challenges that is facing today's world agenda. Your question is very important. I might need a full lecture to explain the tactics, some of the lessons learned that we have managed to gain by time. More than 25 years of experience in the field of mediation. The state of Qatar has emerged in that area as an important cornerstone in our foreign policy. We've been very much engaged when the most significant and complicated cases around the globe, from Gaza and this long-term conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and our involvement in the recent event that started in October 7 is not a new approach. We have more than 15 years of experience in mediating between Israelis and Palestinians, and unfortunately, and I say that unfortunately, our efforts every time does not exceed ceasefire. You know, my friend, and I know that ceasefire is not an end of conflict. It does not end the conflict, but it puts the conflicts to sleep. For how long? This is a question that I think many of the mediators are facing related to the sustainability element. How to have an effective mediation can be summarized with some of the few good ideas. One, neutrality and trust. And mediators needs to be neutral in approaching the conflicts, which is very challenging for many countries around the globe. Neutrality means preventing any political agenda, any even hidden political agenda from the parties, but acting in a good faith in trying to sustain and improve the relationship that the both parties are seeking, the help that the both parties are seeking through the mediator. Qatar managed to demonstrate that to different disputing parties by time. Second, which is very important, is keeping the line of communication open. We're following what I call by the open door policy. We speak to all, not only state actors, but also non-state actors. I know that some of the countries around the globe, including major powers, are somehow hesitant to engage with some of the disputing parties, whether they are groups, non-state actors, sometimes even individuals, which makes it difficult to find and secure peace within that specific dimension. And therefore, Qatar believes that keeping an open communication policy or strategy helps a lot in creating that pathway and being always in the front line in many of those conflicts that are approaching the world. We have managed to expand our reach out from being very much known of our mediation in the Middle East to go even beyond that. You gave some of those examples in Africa. We're busy these days talking to the disputing parties. From one line, the Rwanda DRC, but from second line is the M23 group with the DRC government. And we've been honored by this trust by the DRC governments to take this negotiation to the next level and trying to create a breakthrough in many of those conflicts. Latin America, we have a historical approach in the Venezuela case, in their relationship with the United States, especially during the previous administration. And now we're continuing our approach to different countries around the globe. I have to be honest with you, one successful story creates more demand by a lot of countries around the globe. So you could imagine that we have a lot of requests by several friends around the globe in trying to approach many of those difficult and complicated cases. And many of them has a historical and deeply rooted problems that cannot be resolved in a day or a night. And that will lead me to the third important lesson learned in having an effective mediation: patience. You need to be patient in dealing with the disputing parties. Resolution and resolving conflict doesn't come over a day or a night. It takes time until you build trust between the disputing parties. Having the mediation as a quick train ride will not always lead to a sustainable outcome. And therefore, patience in terms of building trust step by step is something that we have learned very critical in many of the cases that we're dealing with currently at the state of Qatar. And last but not least, one mediator cannot do it alone. And effective mediators means an effective partnership with the different stakeholders. And here, our partners, especially for us in the state of Qatar, is not limited to the state actors. We have many of our friends around the globe from the governmental sides are helping and assisting us in many of the cases. Of course, the example of Gaza, we're partnering with our brothers in Egypt and our friends in the United States have been helping us since the beginning of that conflict. But we have several other cases where there's always an open opportunity for countries to join forces together in creating that peace, building that important pathway towards peace. And also non-state actors, NGOs. Comfort is here, representing also her institution, has been very much helpful in her engagement with us at the state of Qatar, as much as many other NGOs, institutions that have been very effective in helping the mediators in finding this shared and important goal. And therefore, I think those important points are only an example of how a mediation can be effective. Of course, there are other lesson learned that we have managed to gain by time while working in those difficult and complicated cases that we have approached. And I have to be honest with you, we are human beings at the end. And we get directly impacted by the dispute itself, even during the mediation. And our emotions are fluctuating. Days we become very optimistic, other days become a bit pessimistic. But what is unique, I think, about our government and our leaders is that we never give up. And we don't have an impossible mission in the field of mediation. All of the missions are possible. It just demands persistence, it demands patience, and it demands tolerance by the disputing parties to the negotiation table.
Thank you. Masterful in the description of both the lessons as well as challenges the human face, not only of conflict, but of those advancing peace therein. Thank you for this. And you remind us something you said, Madam State Secretary, that we are at a height of armed conflicts globally. Your partners, ICRC, speak of 120, the highest number in their history categorizing, which means there will be more, not less, demand for the good offices that you describe. And we thank you together with partner states in this regard. If I may, excuse me, Mr. Vice Minister, Chancellor of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy, South Korea is navigating a new foreign policy approach, as we've understood, with an emphasis on a kind of pragmatic multilateralism, balancing alliances with historic partners throughout the region, globally and specifically in ASEAN and the EU. Can you share with us, from your vantage point and leadership, how you exercise this question of leadership for peace in an increasingly multipolar order? The floor is yours.
Well, I first would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizer for giving me this valuable chance to be here with such a wonderful group of panelists. Well, thank you very much for the wonderful question as well. South Korea today finds itself navigating a world of turbulence and uncertainty, just like many other countries in the world. Under these circumstances, the new South Korean government is pursuing a pragmatic diplomacy to respond more flexibly to the rapidly changing international environment, while fostering diverse forms of cooperation that can benefit, mutual benefit. That can advance mutual benefits. If I may, let me share my views on peace efforts of Korea in three dimensions: Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asian region, and international arena. So, first of all, on the Korean Peninsula, the new South Korean government is very much determined to move beyond an era of confrontation and usher in a new chapter of peace and prosperity. Inter-Korean relations based on reconciliation and cooperation will benefit not only the Korean Peninsula, but also the international community as a whole. Therefore, the Korea is making every effort to advance peace and security on the Korean Peninsula by taking measures to reduce tensions and bring trust and confidence. It is also exploring possibilities for the resumption of both inter-Korean and US-North Korea talks. Our goal is ultimate denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, not by war, but by negotiation. We know it's a tall order, but we can't afford to give it up. Korea is also very much committed to ensuring that the Korean Peninsula will not become a flashpoint that unleashes another global conflict. Second, on regional dimension, with the US alliance relationship, which was forged right after the end of the Korean War in 1953, remains the foundation of South Korea's security, but it's also evolving, as was demonstrated in the summits in Washington between President Lee and President Donald Trump just last week. Cooperation is further expanding into economy and advanced technologies such as AI, semiconductors, and nuclear energy. I believe such a robust alliance relationship with the United States, together with the future-oriented relationship with Japan, as well as the trilateral cooperation among the three countries will contribute to the peace and security in the region. With China, our approach is measured and pragmatic. China recognizes that, Korea recognizes China is indispensable for regional stability and a vital economic partner. Our policy is not about confrontation, but about managing differences and building a more stable and matured relationship. Korea is hosting the APEC Summit, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, this coming October. And President Xi Jinping of China is expected to come to join the meeting, which could provide a good venue for bilateral summit, in which, enhancement of relationships and peace and security in the region will be further discussed. At the same time, Korea is pursuing more diversified diplomacy. For example, relations with the ASEAN and the European Union are also being elevated, not just in trade and investments, but also areas like green transition, digital cooperation, maritime security, and defense. Last but not least, the international level of responsibilities. As a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, just like Slovenia, where we are stepping up to global responsibilities. Korea is actively engaging in conflict prevention, peacekeeping, peace building, as a long-standing contributor of troops and funding to the UN peacekeeping operations, and as a member of the UN Peacebuilding Commission. It is also contributing to transnational issues such as climate change, cybersecurity, and humanitarian crisis. In particular, with the assumption of the presidency of UN Security Council for this month, Korea will host an open debates on AI and international peace and security. So to sum up, South Korea is positioning itself as a responsible power in deeply unstable world by playing a role in bringing more sustainable peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, in Northeast Asian region, and in the international community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So clear, and I'm very pleased you brought up again the role of the Peacebuilding Commission. Comfort, I know it's something you follow quite a bit. I hope we can come back to that also in the co-chairing role on the review of the peacebuilding architecture, as well as Korea's own contribution therein. If you allow me to turn to my right, and I'll come back. Thank you. Madam Director General, we've heard about the instability and complexity as described with challenging and increasingly more challenging regional dynamics in the immediate neighborhood of Thailand. And more broadly, how does Thailand view its role in strengthening international peace and security?
First of all, thank you for having me in this panel. Actually, it should be my vice minister, but with the political situation in Thailand, so I'm here as a representative from Thailand. So Thailand is we are deeply concerned with the ongoing situation in the world, especially like trade tension and the tariff measures. And also we are closely monitoring the what's happening in Ukraine also, and in the Middle East especially. So for Thailand, we sincerely hope that major powers will make responsible choices, avoid drastic escalation, and leave room for cooperation amidst this strategic competition. And I am also very proud to say Thailand that during the colonization era that's happening during the 15th, the 20th century, Thailand is the only country in Southeast Asia that has not been colonized. So with building on our strength, Thailand right now, during this turbulent situation in the world, geopolitics, we are pursuing three key policy priorities. So first, amidst this shifting global power dynamics, Thailand will focus on maintaining our strategic equilibrium with the major powers, while intensifying our role as a bridge builder, as Slovenia is very strong in this, and also the facilitator to foster trust, mutual interest, and constructive engagement among countries and groups with diverse positions. So that is why we are now the partner of the BRICS, as well as we are robustly pursuing our accession to OECD. And second, in order to foster peace, stability, and development, Thailand believes that rules-based multilateralism and international law must anchor any evolving global order. We are a middle-sized country, so we know that we need our friends in the United Nations. At the same time, we recognize the urgent need to reform the multilateral system to better reflect today's realities. So Thailand therefore strongly supports efforts to make the system more resilient, inclusive, and effective in responding to an increasingly unpredictable world that we are living in. And we remain steadfast in upholding international law, particularly the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter. I think this is like a wall for us, especially with the country of our size. In addition, the Indo-Pacific region has rapidly emerged as the new center of the global geopolitical and economic gravity, and with ASEAN at its heart. ASEAN stands for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, comprising of 10 countries, with the 11th country coming up, that's Timor-Leste. So as a founding member of ASEAN, Thailand remains steadfast in upholding ASEAN's unity, centrality, and relevance. So even we are now having some bilateral issues with our neighboring countries, for Thailand, we intend to solve this issue through peaceful means and in line with international law and United Nations Charter and also ASEAN Charter. We do not want to escalate this tension with our neighbor countries. So, and the third thing is that Thailand will step up our policy of advancing proactive economic diplomacy in response to a more fragmented global economic order and shifting supply chains. The Thai government's priorities include reviving the economy, enhancing competitiveness, and improving the ease of doing business. And now we can see that we're moving forward with more FTAs, which we think as an open country is very important for us. And this is very, right now we need diversification in trade as well. So now, I'm very happy that FTA with the European Union is going very positively, and we intend to conclude this FTA as soon as possible, preferably by the end of this year, but maybe as soon as possible. So I think this is also a big step. So that's our key policies, and we hope that our role will help to bring peace and security to the world that we're living in right now.
Thank you very much for this and the strong emphasis on the resolution of disputes through peaceful means. We've heard this repetitively on matters very close and central to the maintenance of international peace and security, and specifically to your own. So we appreciate this deeply. My dear sister, Dr. Errol Comfort, you're a trusted counsel to many. And not a day goes by where I don't see the analysis, the wisdom appearing, be it on Bloomberg or Financial Times. And that's for a reason. You lead a reputable institution that emphasizes quality of analysis and independence in doing so. We hear a lot about the historic numbers of armed conflicts. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes we only hear of a couple, repetitively, which means the vast majority are, quote unquote, neglected. You'll help me with better terminology. Mm. What is your counsel in terms of the role of leadership in peace in addressing the majority of those 120 armed conflicts, not just the 2 or 3 that are on the headlines?
Yeah. Thank you for your kind words, Itonde, and it's a real pleasure to be here the first time, and to our host, Slovenia, for their partnership with Crisis Group as well, and Minister Khulaifi for your kind words for Crisis Group as well. Before I answer your question, Itonde, I was having an epiphany, maybe not an epiphany, but it was in reference to what the Secretary of State said about small states as well. Mm. It's 80 years since the founding of the United Nations. 80 years ago, the world has been shaped by about 5 or so countries. The more I go to a number of summits, conferences like this, the more and more the podium is shaped by what you call small states, or what some people call middle powers, or what people call rising powers as well. So there is an interest in decentralization of who shapes peace, who determines the outcome of peace, and therefore, Itonde, who are the new leaders in determining the future of peace and security as well. So I think it's an important acknowledgement that increasingly the rooms, I mean, look at this room itself. It's not made up of the 5 big powers as we normally would define them on the Security Council as well. You know, the Guardian was not just being kind to Minister Khulaifi by calling Doha the global centre for diplomacy. It was a recognition of where the centre of gravity lays in terms of trying to rethink diplomacy and recognising that there are other regions, other powers who are not just relevant in their region, but also have a global role in trying to shape peace as well. So, I mean, for me, that's quite a significant difference. That doesn't mean that the other usual 5 suspects are not relevant. It means, however, that there are other leaders coming into it. Itonde, your question goes to the heart of why Crisis Group was born 30 years ago. And we were born in the midst of another great European war in Bosnia, in Sarajevo as well. And in a sense, Crisis Group, you know, and I will be honest and frank with all of you, Crisis Group is having its own sort of Sarajevo to Kyiv moment and Gaza moment. We were born at a time when we said never again. Never again to Srebrenica. And then we said never again to apartheid, because it was a year before that we saw it was in 1990 we saw the beginning of the unraveling of the apartheid. And we said never again in the form of Rwanda. And then again, we said never again in Darfur. And then we came forward and we said never again, never again, never again. And now we are saying never again in Gaza. I heard very well what your president said yesterday, that how will we account for ourselves, in the years to come to explain the Gazas as well. But I also want to ask us, where will we be, or how will we explain ourselves to generations, not just for Gaza and Ukraine, but now let me list to you, Myanmar. Where is the leadership in Myanmar? Where's the leadership in Haiti? Minister, I acknowledge the difficulties and you're going to be entering into that situation. Crisis Group covers 70 live conflicts. That's just from our own data. You mentioned 120 from ICRC as well. And the reason why Crisis Group was born is to keep an eye not on the headline news, the Gazas, the Ukraine, and I would actually even include Sudan in that category as well. I don't think Sudan lacks attention. I think it has been deprioritized. I don't think Sudan suffers from international attention. I think it has a number of competing interests that are making it hard to find a resolution to the situation in Sudan. This was a country that 20 years ago, there was a massive campaign called Save Darfur as well. And 20 years on, we are here again asking ourselves the same questions and going round and round in circles, trying to figure out something that quite frankly, if we have to spend our time mediating the mediators, then you really have a problem. If I have to spend my time trying to figure out how I'm going to work out the interest of all those countries that are interested in a country's crisis, then we have a problem. There are 18 million people in Sudan today that are starving. Forget the numbers in Gaza, 18 million people. We have a famine also, or near-type famine. 1 million people displaced in their country, and a region that, quite frankly, is going to be sucked further and further into the crisis in Sudan. It is a humanitarian catastrophe on our watch as well. So there is not a lack of leadership, but we also have to manage the various competing interests of all the people who are leaders in trying to understand, what do you want from the Sahel? What do you want from Sudan? What do you want from Myanmar? What would satisfy you in trying to find an end to the crisis in these wars as well? That is the question. Because if we took your interests out of the game, we may be able to figure out a pathway to a peace in these crises. Let me give you one example, Itonde, and I'll keep quiet. I came into the work of conflict resolution and all that through Sierra Leone and Liberia back in the 2000s as well. There were a number of countries who were interested in Sierra Leone and Liberia. In the end, it came very clear to us that we needed to figure out a sort of a contact group where we spent time working out the various concerns of all the constituent actors to the conflict. And none of these were Liberians. These were not Liberians. These were not Sierra Leoneans. These were regional powerhouses, including West Africa, including North Africa, including Europe, including the United States as well. So if we're asking us to go back to the drawing table, let's think about how we create some kind of a contact group where we can iron out in a serious way the various interests of key actors who are working or who are trying to find a pathway to peace in a number of the conflicts. It is not a surprise, Qatar, that you are being drawn in to a number of these places because people look upon you as maybe being able to provide a platform to help think through incrementally, because I heard what you said about the patience. And when you form something like a group of friends, or whatever you want to call it, you start building, you start ironing out the irritations, you start ironing out the frustrations, you start listening to each other's interests, and you begin to work out what is it that is key to unlocking the interest and that would enable each of the rebel factions to stop foreign shopping, each of the leaders to stop foreign shopping, and to find a pathway to peace as well. This, I think, is what is missing in a number of the conflicts that we're watching today as well. Thank you.
Thank you for this. And let me add, please. Trusted counsel, as I said. Let me add, in doing so, you demystify the processes and enable various actors with interest, as you rightly described, to feel as though they are contributing.
And you deal with what Minister Khulaifi said. Do not underestimate the suspicion and the trust. I mean, these are the two things that continue to undermine a number of peace processes, the lack of trust and the suspicion that is built in by the various actors.
Thank you. Dr. Levchenko, Berghof Foundation, Mariia, you've advanced, accompanied peace-building initiatives, as I understand, in Ukraine and Ethiopia. Help us, from your vantage point, to better understand what does effective leadership for peace look like when, quote, traditional interventions, some of which you've just described by comparison, are falling short of expectations.
Thank you so much for the question, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here today on the stage, and especially since I was a young Bled Strategic Forum leader a couple of years ago, I feel a specific connection to the forum and this platform. I think when we talk about leadership for peace, we need to start with the question, what does peace look like today? We have lots of scholars and researchers who keep talking about the notions of the positive and the negative peace. However, what we see happening in our communities is something completely different. For example, our colleagues in Ethiopia call this new concept a cold peace. Cold peace means existence of peace only on the paper, but not in the lives of ordinary people or their communities. It's just the preparation for the new cycle of violence. So it's not reconciliation, it's not cooperation, and it's not rebuilding of this trust. Therefore, when we talk about leadership for peace, we need to have the courage to actually ask ourselves how peace should look like. For decades, we have looked at peace in this linear transition, from a war to the ceasefire, from a ceasefire to political agreement, and then from political agreement to reconciliation. However, in realities, in the communities that we work with, and the ones that have been mentioned today already, Ethiopia, Sudan, Afghanistan, Ukraine, peace is fragile, peace is fragmented, and peace is easily reversible. Therefore, leaders for peace cannot focus just on measuring their successes in a number of peace agreements signed or peace talks that they held. They need to focus on rebuilding relationship, trust, and trying to help to heal the wounds which otherwise might lead to a recurrence of the violence. But it's also really important for us to understand, that was mentioned today already, that we do live in a new era in the new world. Yes, we still have influential G7 countries who are leaders in peace mediation and negotiation, the same as multilateral institutions such as European Union and UN. However, we see the emergence of the new actors. Yes, I realize that Qatar might be already working for 15 years in this field. However, the cases of supporting peace talks on Afghanistan or national dialogue in Chad has been quite prominent. Or Turkey, who has been instrumental in supporting grain deal between Russia and Ukraine with the onset of the full-scale invasion. Saudi Arabia also extends its influence way outside of its borders. But what does that mean? That actually means that communities are too tired to wait. They want peace now. For many of them, political institutions are too slow. Quite often in our conversations on the ground, they refer to them as doctors who are just treating the symptoms of the disease instead of looking into the root causes of the conflict. That's why for the new leaders of peace, it's really important to start working together, build alliances, invite new unconventional actors to the table, and actually try to come up with the strategies in how to live in this new fragmented world. And finally, what is the most important, we as peace dealers, as those who try to work on supporting peace in all those communities, need to have humility when we look at the peace question, but also recognize our own biases. Yes, in our field, in mediation, dialogue facilitation, we talk a lot about neutrality, impartiality, or impartiality as well. However, it's not really true, because we are still impacted on a subconscious level by our institutions that we represent, or passports that we hold. That's why we have to move from top-bottom approach, recognize the stereotypes that we have, but also support localization, ownership of the local actors. And we have seen that successfully happen in Ukraine, when municipalities and women groups have been supporting community-based protection during the full-scale invasion. Or in Ethiopia, where religious leaders are taking dialogue facilitators' roles and supporting dialogues in their own communities. Because we cannot sustain peace if the solutions are coming from the outside. We cannot sustain peace if we are talking about neutrality in the world where neutrality itself as a contest is contested. We can only sustain peace if we allow those who live in the conflict every single day to have power in decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariia. And please. Clear demonstration, as I heard many here affirming what you were describing, openly and quietly, but it's a demonstration of the investment in the young Bled Strategic Forum leaders. Thank you, Mariia, for this deeply. Keeping with the non-linear, as you described, we're going to open up a little bit more. And you allow me, Doctor, my dear brother, you heard this reference to not just addressing the symptoms, but going deeper. The trust that Qatar enjoys in the advancement of peace mediation. Can you shed light for us, in light of the lessons already reflected upon, on sustainability of agreements beyond the initial commitments, if you will? How do we go about ensuring this?
Well, thank you so much. This is definitely one of the most challenging tasks for any mediator. It's not to bring the parties to sign the agreement or have a handshake and a picture, but goes beyond that to sustain that agreement in a longer period of time. It's something that is very critical, and history has shown us how some of the agreements were not as sustainable as we hoped that it would be. Bringing violence back again between the conflicting parties. War kicks off in many of the region around the globe. Due to the difficulties to sustain that peace and agreement. I have 5 points to share with you today related to sustainability, and I've mentioned that before. Some of them may work, others may not, but we need to continue fighting for sustainable peace and a sustainable agreement between the parties. One of which I thought that it will be very important are the regional actors. To any conflict, the regional actors, stakeholders, are the closest to the disputing parties and closest to the disputing area. And therefore, relying on regional actors to work closely with the parties of the agreement, following up the signing of the agreement itself, is something that is extremely critical. And here we don't refer only to governments and states, but we also refer to regional organizations. African Union, when it comes to the DRC-Rwanda conflicts, are very critical. We need to continue playing a close role in that conflict, following up the signing of Washington agreements and the Doha Declaration. When it comes to the Gaza situation, we have Jordan and Egypt, our neighboring countries, that have very close interest. Some of them may touch base on a security interest, others, other types of interest. And therefore, I think it's very important to value and continue to cooperate with regional actors to the areas of conflicts. A second suggestion or a recommendation when it comes to the sustainability element is definitely some of the work that needs to be done before reaching that agreement. One of the challenges that I've noticed in my time at the ministry and working in many of the mediation cases is that the clauses or the provisions of the agreements need to be as clear as possible to the parties. Misinterpretation and reading some of the clauses in a way that is interpreted in one way for one party but interpreted in other ways for other parties creates a huge complication at the implementation level. And therefore, I know that some of the lawyers are with us in the audience, get the lawyers to strengthen and make those provisions as clear as possible. A second suggestion is to have a longer relationship with the parties. What I would recommend is what we call the follow-up mechanism in many of the agreements. Chad is a good example that you have raised. This is one of the things that we have also introduced in the peace agreement between the 43 different political and army groups of Chad signed in Doha is by creating a follow-up mechanism that will allow the mediator to have a longer relationship with the disputing parties rather than a shorter period of time. So I will not erase your number from my phone following up the signing ceremony. I'm very much interested in taking up this relationship to the next level and continue monitoring the implementation of the agreement. The third point is the dispute resolution mechanism. It's a very critical, important, and many disputing parties are not taking it very seriously. The disputing parties has the liberty of selecting any future dispute resolution mechanism that can be selected. Many countries refer to negotiation as statistically the most selected or tool in resolving conflicts. Mediation, continuing the relationship with the mediator even post the conflicts. If a new conflict has been raised, the mediator can engage back in with a specific mechanism determined between the disputing parties. Even judicial tools, such as arbitration or referring those cases to the ICJ and the international platforms. These are very critical, I would call it tips, that any disputing parties need to take into consideration during the implementation. Of course, what the mediator can do is encourage, is recommend, present as positive initiatives to the disputing parties. But my role will not extend beyond the important aspects. It is the party's duty to implement in a good faith the agreements that they came to the mediator to try to find a resolution towards it. And therefore, I think it's very critical that the parties are taking this very seriously and really think of the impact of returning back against violence. And again, history has always shown us how if the conflict has been returned, it will not be returned in the same shape or form that has been as it used to be before. Gaza is a good example. Exactly. And I think it's very essential for us to make sure that the parties understand their obligations and be committed towards those process. One last point, and I think very important, and I think our colleagues from Korea and from Thailand has touched base on, is the economical developments, and I will add to it the social and humanitarian development projects that are very critical. Many of the conflicts around the globe, the most affected are the most vulnerable, are the people in the streets, are the citizens of those areas of conflicts. And therefore, continuing the engagement by presenting several projects, even at the international level, that can help and support those areas. Something that is, I find, very important and can at least bring hope back into the people on the grounds to witness that the agreement is not only for signature and the agreement is not only for a picture, but it's also for a direct impact on the ground.
Thank you. So clear. And let me come back, if I may, to this emphasis you put on avoiding ambiguity. You know, the 2005 Comprehensive Peace Agreement between the government of Sudan and that of the Sudan People's Liberation Army movement could have been described in totality, and it was, as particular provisions, let me be fair, in the form of constructive ambiguity, deliberately by the mediator, as a means of literally postponing more complex issues, many of which we see taking shape now, exactly as you described, when the war reemerges, and there are several since then in other forms, more catastrophic, varied interests. And in that agreement in particular, the constructive ambiguity around, for example, what was the purpose and intent? A new unified, transformed Sudan. And yet we know the interpretation moved somewhere else, focusing on a particular provision, or on the popular consultations, with no legal terminology behind what this meant for the people of Blue Nile or elsewhere, but again, to delay and postpone in ambiguous terms, deliberately. And there are the precise spaces in which that have seen neglect also amount to forms of conflict. Really, thank you for this emphasis, also in light of your official role and capacity. Madam State Secretary, December will be will hold again the presidency of the Security Council. December now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
What is the aspiration you envision to push forward? We've heard from your president, as Comfort described earlier, but what do you see as the vision for that final mandate, and how does your legacy on the Council, how will that shape your future diplomatic priorities, if you would, please?
Thank you very much for this question. Indeed, December will be our last month on the Security Council, and we'll have the presidency the second time around. The first time around, our presidency was last September, and our flagship event during that presidency was open debate under the title Leadership for Peace. It was chaired by our Prime Minister, and what transpired from that open debate was that all 15 member states of the Security Council, meaning the P5 and the E10, recommitted to the principles of the UN Charter. Now, this may seem a little bit abstract, but this is fundamentally important, and we to continue building on this pledge, as we could say, it was a kind of a pledge. But that's one side of our thinking. For sure, we will work on that, and we will continue also working on our priorities. I was talking about protection of civilians. I was talking, and of course, I focused on two conflicts when I was giving my opening remarks. But of course, we're well aware that there are so many conflicts around the world that need our attention, and that's why we need to emphasize and strengthen the basis, meaning what our vantage point, and our vantage point is humanitarian law, it's international law. But our priorities were also to widen the scope of the themes, the topics that the Security Council has its agenda. And in particular, we are focused on climate, peace, security, climate, water, peace, security. I mean, and this is something where we see that in the coming years, this nexus will become even more important, and we have to deal with this. There are this nexus is so important. Water, the climate change, is at the roots of conflicts, and of course, this with the climate change, we cannot escape this, and this is going to be certainly something that we are going to be focusing on even after our membership on the Security Council is over. But one thing I want to emphasize in relation to our membership on the Security Council. This is not an outlier for us. We've been on the Security Council before. We ran 3 times. We're successful 2 times. But we have been very proactive all along in multilateral fora, and our next step, I hope, or our big priority is Human Rights Council. We are seeking to be on the Human Rights Council now the 3rd time around, starting in January 26th. And certainly we will also take forward some of the priorities that we've been working so energetically upon. And one more thing the last thing, I know we are short in time. I want to say that through our engagement in the Security Council, we built many partnerships, including partnerships with the countries from the Global South, global partners, and we are going to continue to focus on continuing to build these partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam State Secretary. Building off of this, we have 10 minutes, 45 seconds remaining. 43. Someone's been listening very deeply to our conversation. The former State Secretary of Finland, who is now leading Center of Excellence also on civilian crisis management, established in Berlin. Johanna Suomavori, a dear colleague and friend, dare I say, who will reflect a little bit on what she's been hearing. But before doing so, one question, if I may. We spoke about this briefly last night. And so inspired by your own research and reflections, allow me to say, all this emphasis on crisis management, on ceasefires, as you referenced, how do we get to also transformation? Can we use this term right now? Conflict transformation? The patience you described? Please, if you would, sir. Chancellor.
Well, thank you very much for the question. But if I may, because the time is limited, we have talked a lot about the traditional security challenges. But as you know, out there are so many non-traditional challenges we face. For example, the challenges such as global supply chain restructuring and technological competition. When energy and food supply chains are disrupted, as we all will expect, the conflicts and insecurity can spread rapidly all around the world. Likewise, competition in advanced technologies such as AI carries both risks and possibilities. It also carries, creates new domain of rivalry, but also demands international cooperation on rules, norms, and regulations. Because it also has the potential to deepen distrust among nations, we need to engage with those new challenges before they translate into crisis. So, to address these challenges, it is more crucial for all of us to expand communication and cooperation. So, for its part, Korea is trying to seeking solutions on these new challenges, but at the same time, the BSF and platforms such as BSF and Re-aim Summit could also provide valuable opportunities for like-minded countries to share perspectives on, build consensus on issues that could profoundly affect our future generation. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad you said this. Our future generation, not just agreements for the political moment, but frameworks like the Charter that take into account verbatim that future generations may not suffer from the scourge of war. Madam Director General, is it possible in this moment of great instability to move beyond crisis management alone? We have to do it, but also put forward transformative aims, if you would, briefly.
Well, yes. For Thailand, we think that balancing the powers in the region is a very important factor for creating peace in the region, and which is resulting in for the future generation to live in a better world. So for Thailand, for the major powers in the region, it's definitely it's China and the US. And we have, for Thailand, we enjoy the close ties, and both countries are very important to our people-to-people connections as well. So for Thailand, we foster a friendship and partnership with both sides. So to ensure, but while we ensure that our core interests also remain intact. So that's quite difficult, and I think it's a question for every country in the world right now, how we could keep our interests to remain intact. So, and also what the cornerstone of Thailand's foreign policy is ASEAN. So, and we believe that we see that the positive and constructive relationship between China and the US, particularly with respective relationships with ASEAN, it's very important, especially for the economic trajectory of Thailand and ASEAN, and also the region as well. And and the last, but not least, is the multilateralism, and we stand for multilateralism. Some people do not now have trust in multilateralism, but for Thailand, we think that it can still play an important role in fostering cooperation and also addressing the trust deficit right now. But although a major reform is needed, so I think that's from Thailand.
Thank you for this comfort. Is it possible for us to speak of transformation in the midst of this world we're in?
Depends on what you mean by transformation.
Conflict transformation.
Yeah. I mean, conflicts go through different cycles.
That's it.
As well. And you may get small-scale transformation in a corner of a conflict, that manages one part of the piece while you try to figure out the rest of it. Your point on the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement as well. But there is an interesting development going on right now that can enable transformation if we allow it to work, which is what Slovenia and Egypt are doing. So let's go back to your opening.
Peace-building architecture review process.
And let's close the loop as well. Because if you allow, the idea of the Peace-building Fund Commission is that it's the one that steps in to help in terms of reducing, transforming a society from going back to conflict, to start thinking more about the medium to long-term developmental instruments and strategies that you need to help sort of lower the temperature and start deal with those socio-economic issues. So I don't expect radical reforms in terms of the architecture, but it can be the body where you start thinking in a more concrete terms, how you put in place the building blocks that will help a society not return to conflict. Because I think when you look at a number of the conflicts that we're dealing with now, these aren't necessarily new conflicts. These are sort of a recycling. These are, conflicts that can spiral in. When you think you've signed a peace deal, you find out actually you've only signed it in pencil, that nothing is really sticking. So you have instruments like the peace building that begin to think about the incentives, the peace dividends, but that is not necessarily for some of the other conflicts that we're talking about, like Ukraine, on Gaza. I think we're a long way from that kind of conversation. What I'm thinking about is places like Haiti, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Venezuela, Colombia. Asking why those are stuck is crucial. And I think the Peace-building Commission and the architecture that you're working on, State Secretary, becomes vital if it's allowed to function. And if we are serious about international financial reform, then we can start thinking about those societal issues that are crucial to keeping the glue together.
If it is allowed to function.
And I really do underline that word, if it's allowed to function as well.
Mariia, on transformation, the possibility, you work for a peace-building organization. Is this naive speak, or does it mean something in the state of the world we are in?
It absolutely means a lot. I would start saying that trying to bring peace to the communities is like rebuilding bridge after the war. We can have a grand opening ceremony, lay a couple of planks here and there, but if you don't work on restoring the foundation, that bridge will fall down, unfortunately. So peace agreements, they are like hardware of the peace, while we have to work on the software in parallel. And by software, I mean something that we use in our field by 4H. It's heads, hearts, hands, and the health. So basically, we need to allow communities to be present in decision-making, as I mentioned before. We need to have empathy towards them, to what they go through. We need to be able to provide them with job opportunities, and that's the hands. And final, not the least, we need to help them with their mental health support. So if you rebuild that bridge, only then they will be able to work together hand in hand if they have that support from international community.
Johanna, your key observation, we don't have time for all of them, but your key observation in light of what you've heard. Loud and clear, please.
It was a very interesting discussion, and I have a lot of key takeaways, but I only take 3 main ones really quickly. And I think overall, I think the panel, all of you had a very comprehensive security approach. So you didn't focus on military means only, but you were really widely describing different means to solve conflicts or have an impact on them. Like State Secretary from Slovenia mentioned many means how you are supporting Ukraine, for example, starting from humanitarian assistance. And I think building that trust or the bridge, it needs comprehensive security analysis and means. And I was wondering whether we have a lot of means already, whether we use them all as effectively as we could. One observation was, I think, from Ministry of State from Qatar that we have to use more efficiently also cooperation with the regional organizations. And I'm working as a director for the European Center of Excellence for Civilian Crisis Management. And we are actually working together with the EU member states to develop their national civilian crisis management capabilities so that they can effectively deliver different kinds of services from police to border guard assistance to security sector reform, rule of law assistance, gender equality advice, or climate and security, hybrid cyber, or disinformation mitigation advice. And we need this palette. We don't get comprehensive security or sustainable security only with military means. In addition to that, we need civilian crisis management. And we in Berlin are working on that, and I think all of you really gave me hope also by having this wide approach to security. I don't want to take more of your time, but thank you really much for this, and good luck for your work.
Thank you so much, so clear. As we say, give a vote of thanks. I'm so sorry I'm going to have to conclude. It's the last panel of the day. I see your hand up. I would encourage you to come and engage the distinguished panel. Join me in thanking our distinguished panel. And as we, please, if you would, join me in thanking. Allow me to give the floor to Madam State Secretary, perhaps to also extend the invitation to next year's Bled Strategic Forum, if you would, Madam State Secretary.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for moderating this panel so well, and thank you for your partnership. And we are now, and thank you all for coming to the 20th edition of the Bled Strategic Forum. I think that you could all see for yourself that coming to Bled is worthwhile. It's worth everybody's time to come here and be part of this, what has become through years really one of the foremost platforms for exchange of opinions, one of the foremost strategic fora in the world. So it is my pleasure to announce already the dates for next year's Bled Strategic Forum, 31st of August and 1st of September 2026. I'm looking forward to seeing you next year back here in the beautiful Bled.
Thank you so much.